Hey guys, this is Mike with Qlik. Thanks for joining me in the next video in the Do More with Qlik video series, where we are continuing to learn about data products for Qlik Analytics, and we're currently exploring data sets and data quality. In the last video, we talked about semantic types, and as you can see, we applied the semantic type to the vendor column, where we can now use it for validation as well. And as you see, we can see values that are invalid, null, and valid. And in this video, we're going to create validation rules, and you're going to see the difference in those, how they can work across column, and set up logic that helps define if the column in question is valid or not. Let's jump right in. So before I pressed record, I removed the semantic type that we had applied to vendor because I want to create something similar with a validation rule, but I want to provide some of the user experience so you can see how validation rules are created, how they're managed, and the different parts of the UI where they're located. So let's first select vendor. When you select vendor, you'll notice in the section validation rules, if we click the plus symbol, we can apply an existing validation rule. Now, I don't have any here, so we can create it manually, or we could use AI to generate some suggestions. And we'll either do that in a later video or a little bit later in this video. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that there's a section here called validation rules. And this is where you can apply an existing validation rule from the same interface, but basically to any column, and associate it to that column based off of a variable that you might have created in a template. And what I mean by that is if we go over to data quality, you'll see there's validation rules, and I can click add. And here's where we can also set up a validation rule for others to use based off of a template that we create. And these rules can be applied to whatever column the rule is described for. So let's just create one called vendor check. Notice that there are some drop-downs for severity and category. Refer to the help documentation to learn more about these, but based off of these selections, they could affect the Qlik trust score. Space, basically where we just want to keep it for others to use who have access. I'm just going to put it in the Do More with Qlik space. Could provide a description, and then you can start defining the rule. Now, the difference here when you do this under data quality is you enter a variable name, and the variable, don't get that confused with a Qlik Sense application variable. This is just a placeholder that you will associate a column to a little bit later when you apply the rule to that column or multiple columns. So just to give you an example, I'm going to use the convention of the field that I want, in this case, var_vendor, just so you can see how it works. Then we can select the various operators. We can say where text equals. If we select generic, you can see is empty, is not empty if we're looking for like null values. If we select text, I want to use is one of, because I'm going to basically simulate that dictionary that we created with the semantic type. So we want to use the Retro Game Boys and the Retro Game Boys LLC values. And then we can add the value. And then click create. So this will add the validation rule here. So when we go back into the data set and we click validation rules, apply validation rule, you have the ability to select vendor check. And then here you'll notice that it uses the variable name, and we can select a field. So in this case, vendor, and it also provides you with a preview, and we can see where vendor is one of the two values. And then the rest of these are marked as invalid. Now note, it does not take into consideration null values here when you use validation rules. Note that this is only off of a sampling of 100 records. And then you can choose to turn off basically the different columns, or just say, show me just invalid values and show me just the logical fields. And then once that's done, you can click next or click refresh quality and then click next, click apply, and it'll apply that validation rule. And you can see logic preview, the field it's applied to. And then once this finishes refreshing, you'll see the quality in the form of a visual indicator like this from this validation rules tab. Now, if we go back to the data preview, and we go to vendor, you can now see that representation here as well. But this is off of a preview size of 1000. And remember from the previous video, we're using 100% of the data set for the sampling. So once again, you'll notice that the validation rule is applied. Here, you'll notice there's associate, deactivate, and remove. The reason we use the term associate is because you can associate that variable with a different column and make that change if needed. If we were to remove this, and once that's completed, back on vendor, since we are selecting the column vendor, the other way of doing this is by clicking the plus symbol and then selecting the validation rule that was created, clicking next, and you have the same exact view as before. Okay, so what I want to do now is click suggestions. And what this is going to do is it's basically going to use AI and infer information for a rule based off of what it's learned from that data. So here I will click generate new rules. And here it could take up to a minute, but it's going to generate a number of rules based off of what it has learned from the data. The more descriptive information that you have looking in the fields can help. Okay, so here are some examples. Order number must be positive. Verifies that order number is greater than 0. Line item sequence must be positive. Quantity sold must be at least 1. Price must be positive, right? So it's looking at all the different columns and making suggestions for rules. You'll notice we have one for vendor here. Vendor must not be blank when provided. Type must be a valid category. Carrier must be a valid shipping carrier, and it provides all the different lists. These rules that are created by AI might prove useful to you, so I would definitely give it a try. All right, so that is setting up a validation rule on a column. In the next video, we're going to continue with data validation rules, but this time we're going to create a more complex one using some if-then-else logic and show you how we can apply these across different columns by using that logic. See you on the next one.